Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and selfless service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, a different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our chat room, via our Facebook page, and of course, on Twitter. Keep it funky. And there you go, everyone. Keep it funky. Trying to get the social spun up. Welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn. I feel like we were just all together a few days ago, but
just days.
Yes. Oh, I got to fix my audio with the Tobe. Here, let me.
Is that too deep and sexy?
No, I had it on the wrong speakers. It's on me, not on you. I was preparing for something different. All right. How you doing, Toby?
No, living the dream.
Yeah?
I like that Game Guard Veteran Outdoors shirt you be rocking.
I am sporting the Game Guard.
With a little Gear for Grunts hat.
Little Gear for Grunts hat, sporting that, and the Game Guard VO shirt. I'll be honest, can I just tell you something between us girls?
Oh, please, on the fence post.
Between us girls. This is the first time I probably wore a shirt with a collar on it in like 3 weeks.
Oh, you're a dick.
It's been all T-shirts. But I had to make an errand. I had to leave the house today, so I was like, I guess I should put a shirt on. And I'm thinking it's Thursday, so let me put on something that I'd want to wear tonight. And I thought, I haven't sported this one yet. So, yeah. Anyways.
Well, I dig it.
Yeah.
I dig it.
Well,
I'm wearing a little Kermode shirt.
Oh yeah, that's a different one. Yeah.
Well,
I like that one.
They're one of our top sponsors.
They are
Kermode Outdoor Development Group, or Kermode Outdoors if you're on the IG.
On the IG, that's it. I noticed. Can you give us? I've had a few questions about what's Kermode. What is that shirt you're wearing? Because people have picked that up. And you guys have a Facebook page. Don't have a really. Last I saw it on a website. Can you give our listeners, before we get going, or we can do it now or do it later? We actually got to get the graphics up too, but a little bit about what Kermode is.
So first and foremost, the Kermode is the greatest bear to ever be born on the earth. But the Kermode Outdoors is the compilation, the extrapolation. I'm trying to think of Shun's word that we can use.
You got lots of them, yeah.
It is the premier outdoor development group that is trying to put together the best outdoor gear in terms of apparel for true adventurers. And trying to put together the clothing, the shirts, and accoutrements that truly reflect the upscale guy, but not fashion, function, and trying to make it so that whether you're on the bank, the boat, or the bush, or in the bar, you can wear it with style, comfort, and know that you are presenting the best you that there is. The Kermode bear, to which the namesake that it's named after, is a very special bear. The Kermode bear, I encourage all our listeners to Google this. The Kermode bear is a special genome of the bear family. It is named after a great person named Kermode, hence why it's got it. The First Nations, or the Native Americans, Aborigines, whichever term you want to utilize, of North America, call it the spirit bear. It is a white bear or cream-colored bear. It is not an albino, and it is not a polar bear. It is its own subspecies genome of the bear family, Americanus, and there's about 200 to 1,000 live in the wild. It is more unique. It is more endangered than the panda bear or the Bengal tiger or any of these other animals. I know everyone's into the tigers right now because they've been watching Netflix too much.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
Is it more rare than a glacier blue?
Yes.
Which are pretty rare bears.
It's a rare bear. And so as a result, it's super unique, but there's a couple of really cool facts. It's an unbelievable fisherman, or fisher bear, I guess is the appropriate term. I don't want to misappropriate its gender.
Kodiak's a pretty good fisher.
But it's an amazing fisher. But it also, in all of recorded history, there's never been a negative Kermode human interaction. So even Oprah agrees. Oprah financed. Yeah. Oh no. No. Here we go. American history. The great Oprah Winfrey funded and sponsored a show that ended up being produced by Disney, The Spirit Bear.
Is that about Kermode bears?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that. See what happens when you tune into Stu and the Nunn, especially when it's just the two of us. There's history, there's pop culture, all of that happening in one place. And in the first couple minutes of that. So, no, I never have asked you. We've known about this for a while. I know you've been naming it. I just never, and it just recently dawned on me after I've had a number of people ask me about it, what it is, and that kind of stuff.
So that's what's up. It's its own bear, and that's why we have it. We've been, and when I say we, there's a group. That's why it's called the Kermode Outdoor Development Group. There's a group of very specialized folks involved in it, doing participating in different levels and parts. We have professional fishermen. We have professional outdoorsmen. We have extremely successful guys from the banking industry, entrepreneurs that are involved in this, that all believe in the product and what the message is, and are bringing it to you. They are the top sponsor of this show.
Yep. That's why I'm lacking in getting the graphics up there. And I know I put you on the spot by asking you about it. We didn't talk about this beforehand. I was just kind of popped in my head, and I'm like, hey, explain to everybody.
But that's what's up. Yeah.
Okay. I want to welcome a few people. I'm just looking at the chat. Rob, Aaron, Kathleen, Colton Smith, Chuck, Frank.
Colton Smith's in the chat.
Yeah, I kind of blew off a text today. I'm not going to dog him out.
Colton Smith's in the chat.
At least he's tuning in because he knows where else would he rather be on a Thursday night. Not one of those bands in town live streaming events that some musicians doing from their house. None of those things, which, by the way, I don't know about you, Toby. I'm getting like 5 a day of every band or artist doing something. But
Hey, hold on.
I see
I'm
it.
getting a message.
I see it. Hold on, let me listen. Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Colton. Okay, you're good.
All right. Well, that gets you kind of out of jail.
Feeling good for the Enlisted Nine. We should mention, you mentioned Kermode, Enlisted Nine Fight Company, Veteran Outdoors, and Kermode, and Gear for Grunts. All great sponsors. Got my Gear for Grunts hat on along with the VO shirt. You got the Kermode. We're sporting just about everything. All great sponsors of the show, and love every bit of them, even though, yeah. So there we go.
I'm like, we're having a little bit of extreme weather here. So like my internet's not the best. So I apologize for that. I'm like, I can't get my socials going. I've been trying for
That's all right.
about 9 minutes, but so Colton Smith, you're off the hook. But what we really wanted Colton on the show for tonight was to tell us more about Enlisted Nine Fight Company and what they got going on. There's a new school opened up in Virginia. And, we wanted to hear more about that, but they got some new products coming out. We wanted to PIMP, what they got going down. So hopefully you heard it here second.
There's some new stuff coming. We're definitely going to have him on. So he couldn't make it tonight. We're going to have him on coming up for sure. Colton's got a lot of things in the hopper that I know he wants to share.
We want to know. We want to know.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Inquiring minds.
So until then, we're definitely going to have Colton on in the next hopefully couple weeks. So we try to get him in today, but it is what it is. People have lives. A lot of things going on in the world. So, makes sense. Toby, can I ask you a personal question?
Please.
Please
let me bare my soul to the interwebs.
No. I'm, obviously we do this show every week. I have my headset on, all this stuff. For some reason, I don't know if I've changed some equalizer settings or something, but my voice sounds different to me tonight than it has. Is that what it is?
We've been waiting for them balls to drop.
Balls dropped. That's what it is. Good. Glad to know that's all it was. No, I didn't know. I want to make sure I'm not getting sick or doing something like that. I just feel like my voice is sounding different.
Got the COVID, my son.
Well, if it just makes if it makes my balls drop, I guess maybe I benefited out of this. I don't know. But anyways, so a lot going on. We want to hit on. We had a great show. If those that missed it the other night, Monday night, we had a great show with Dr. Mike Simpson on. If you did not catch it, please be sure to go back and watch or listen to that. We covered a lot of topics on rumors, speculations, his professional perspective from a lifelong doctor as he is, combat soldier and everything else. But, and being that he didn't try to float an agenda or pump himself up, he doesn't need to. He gave it to you, the facts, what he knew about, and what he didn't know about, he was honest about that. So definitely encourage you to go back and watch and listen to that. But, so Toby,
Before we go on, let me give a couple of shout outs. I think in the Facebook chat, I apologize. My social media, my interwebs are slow right now. But Aaron Lulin, my main man, 12 Fox Beer Company, is in one of the chat rooms. I want to give a shout out to 12 Fox Beer Company because they're doing some really cool things to get groceries to folks right now, as well as just selling beer. They're one of those great companies like Mesquite Creek Outfitters that are working outside the box to feed people. Big shout out to Kathleen Sheehan Sweeney, my partner in crime when it comes to riding bicycles. But
okay,
there you have it.
Yeah,
go ahead.
And thank you, Rob, for putting up the link to the YouTube video that we had Dr. Mike on the other night. I appreciate that. So if you are just tuning in or listening in, I see we got a few hundred folks. You can go look at our Facebook chat. You can see that, or just go to stewandthenunn.com, hit any of our links. The audio only is up there on Spreaker feed, and then all the links to all of our other video and audio outlets are up there. But I want to hit on, obviously every day the 5 to 6 o'clock briefing has been coming up. A week ago, Toby, they were talking 100 to 250,000 possible dead in the country. We talked about that a little bit to Mike the other night, but they were saying, hey, it's going to be this, and everyone's watching about. We're learning all these new terms, all these new put into our vernacular, right? Peaks, curves, apexes, all these kind of things that now have different or very current meanings to us that really didn't, those terms before didn't have much, concept. But we were talking just a week ago about this 100 to 250,000 dead on the low end, upwards of, it could be a 1 or 2 million on the high end, as everyone's trying to figure this out, make their best educated guess on a topic and an impact that we never never could have predicted, had never modeled or something that I know of. We're now a week later. And thanks, Rob. Rob's throwing some serious stats up in there.
Dude, he's getting down tonight.
Yes.
I'm like, I know I'm behind you. I'm trying to get this.
So, he's, as Rob is
thunderstorm.
Right. So, when I say 100 to 250,000, that was in the U.S., right? So right now, according to Rob, our unpaid producer, right, 95,000 deaths, roughly a little over that in the world, 16,000 and some change in the U.S. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's 16,478, but over 16,000. And, a week ago, they were saying 1 to 250. Now I heard the latest number, Toby, they're talking 61,000, 65,000, somewhere in there. We're seeing kind of what they're referring to as flattening of the curve. New York had a couple good days. When we talked to Mike the other day, I think Saturday, Sunday, New York was having a couple good days. I don't know if people got a little too excited thinking it was going to drop off. But then it spiked right back up, and they had the Tuesday, Wednesday, and today, or I think Tuesday and Wednesday are the two next highest days they've ever had, with yesterday being the most amount of deaths that they've had in the state of New York, mostly New York City, I think. So with that happening, but the rest of the country seems like it's leveling off. These days of hitting the apex, the peaks at different states dates are changing. Just curious. I mean, to me, it looks like that they try to make their best guess without coming across too Pollyanna, too optimistic, but at the same time, weren't trying to preach doom and gloom. It looks like there's a possibility we could come in lower than even the 100,000, which was considered, even though that's a lot of death, right? And a lot of sorrow and a lot of heartbreak that'll happen, as it has already for the 16,000 that have happened in the U.S. We could come in a lot lower than that. And I just want to get your thoughts on it. Do you think it's even too early to speculate on that or get too excited over it or anything like that?
Well, it's never too early to get excited or optimistic about anything. So let me open with that statement. I'm really grateful, proud, and excited for the fact that as a nation, we're answering the call by doing the right thing for the most part. And when I say for the most part, is people are looking at the brothers. I talked about companies like Mesquite Creek Outfitters, Brad and Cody. I talked about Aaron Luling with 12 Fox, beer company. I'm talking about these small businesses. I'm talking about these small community business owners. I'm talking about immediate community leaders, the Holly McNamara's of the world, the selectmen from, the small, Somerset, Massachusetts. I'm talking about, for the most part, the American people have answered with the right answer. The leadership of the nation have answered with the right answer. And, you throw partisan politics out the window. For the most part, when you look at who's answering the call, the health workers, the National Guard, the governors, the CDC, when you look at all this, we're figuring it out. We're learning on the fly. This is definitely not a softball pitch. These are pitches that are coming in fast. They're unfriendly and they're not necessarily in the strike zone. Yet there's the expectation that you swing on it. This is the Oglethorpes, skating out on the ice without the elbow pads on so that they can throw punches quicker. They're looking to yank everyone's jersey and jack the country up. But yet, we are answering as a nation with good stuff. I am hopefully and happily optimistic that yes, whatever terminology you want to use, flattening the curve, whatever you want to use, we're doing well to keep people alive. And while, like Rob just put up the the Texas numbers of right at 200 versus 10,000 cases. Like, that's not bad. Like, that's better than a poke in the eye with a sharp stick. All right, that's better than being the point man on a patrol in the late 60s, early 70s. Like, these are good. These are good numbers. I mean, the fact that we're talking about them being good numbers is embarrassing, but that's the reality.
Right.
But I love it, and I love what America's doing. I love how we're responding to it.
Let me tell you what I don't love is we're seeing that we talked about this last week popping up that we had a week or two off from the political BS, and it started to rear its ugly head near the end of last week, and it seems like it's starting to get worse now. Now we have it's back to playing the game. It's back to people blocking stuff because they don't want it. I mean, we saw that first relief bill come in, and even though it was not a deal that anyone, neither side, I guess to put it in that term, wanted, it didn't have everything they wanted. They compromised, came together to help get this country some relief as quick as possible. We've already seen since then, before the money's even spent, I think any major percent of it's been spent. The one side, the Democratic Party, was already pushing for another $4 trillion or $2 trillion, or I can't even conceive that amount. But and then we had an emergency funding put in by the Republicans now because the small business loans, the amount allocated for that was used up pretty quick. A lot of them, it's a great program. For those that don't know, to highlight the top part that I know, that I'm aware of, right? If companies take tap into this loan program to pay employees and keep payroll going for the next 2 months, then it just becomes a grant. They just get it. They don't have to pay it back, which is awesome, right? I don't know how you can use the people. You can just let them sit at home. It doesn't matter, but you're allowed to pay your people for 2 months. And then as long as you use it for that, and nothing else, you don't pay it back. So obviously that was tapped into really quick. And what I understand is today, the Republicans tried to put into another bill to add more to that. And now the Democrats have just stopped that in order to put in more stuff. They just didn't go far enough or whatever. So it seems like I don't want to say goodwill, but it seems like the partisan politics was set aside for those first couple weeks as we came to grapple with this. And now that everyone is seeing how it progresses, and maybe they realize, okay, it's not such a panic or whatever. Now we're back to playing partisan politics, which is really sad that, look, the Republicans let go through funding the Kennedy Center, even though they were, the musicians were laid off the next day, or the endowment for the humanities and stuff, which are great programs. Probably not what is needed to keep. I mean, it'd be different if the Kennedy Center kept people employed, right? That would have been different. But when you let them go, it kind of really defeats the purpose of why you included that money. So now we have the next thing happening, which is, they're trying to expand the small business one, which affects small business, which affects those businesses to stay up and running. More importantly, it allows them to keep paying their employees. Now that's being stopped, and it's just really sad. I just got to say, I'm pretty upset that it's getting back to this.
No, no secret small business owner here. As soon as the CARE Act, the SBA stuff came out, like, we were on it, working with everyone that we could, working with our banks, working with our lenders, trying to figure out how to do that, try to keep people employed, keep people paid, it's frustrating that people's livelihoods have become pawns in a very frustrating process. But one thing that I am happy in knowing is that you can't hide that. There's some things that you can hide, like you can push a bill through in the middle of the night with 3,000, 30,000 plus pages of bullshit, and the American people will never know about it. This is the moment that you can't hide that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter what party you are. It doesn't matter, what your affiliations are. When you're dealing with how to deal with your mortgage lender, how to deal with that, you can only deal with what is actual, what's contractual, and what's applicable to you.
Right.
And like that is the great, like equalizer.
I mean, you don't need to do the whole pass it and then we'll read it. I mean, there's groups that are on this thing as soon as it becomes public. They're just putting armies on it, ripping through it, and we saw it with the bill that came out for this originally, right? It was the next morning they were breaking down what was going to all these pork projects, right? What was going to all these things, and so it's not even you're not going to shovel that under the carpet, right?
And that's the thing is like people now actually have a hot moment to pay attention, and a
motivation to, regardless of what side they're on. Right there's a motivation too, but more importantly, there's a motivation from the 6+ million people that have filed for unemployment in the last 3 weeks, and many other folks that haven't.
Like one of the greatest things. Let's talk about unemployment real fast. One of the things that was really important in terms of unemployment was that a lot of lawmakers said, "Hey, we're going to pass this, but we understand that the states that are the entity that's going to have to deal with this don't have the infrastructure to do it. So let's focus on fixing that versus, like, say, the Kennedy Center."
Right.
And
all the state websites are just crashing. I mean, they can't even keep up with the
and so like today, it's either today or yesterday was like the first day that you could start applying for actual checks, right? To be applicable to the CARE Act. And here's the thing is like when you start dealing with people's pocketbook directly, you have their undivided attention. This is no longer a maybe we watch let's start being honest. While we're enjoying some great numbers right now, we got several hundred folks watching us. We're gonna have a couple thousand downloads tomorrow. While we're enjoying this attention, the reality is we have people's attention because they have the time to focus in on this.
Right.
When you're dealing with people's money, you have their undivided attention. Mainstream media don't have people's attention. Their pocketbook has their attention. People are not, when you look at the amount of people that are paying attention to what's going on, they're not paying attention to what Fox News says. They're not paying attention to what MSNBC says. They're not paying attention to what CNN, HLN, CBS, whatever. They're not paying attention to what they say. They're not paying attention to their opinions. They're paying attention to what's affecting their bank account.
Yeah.
And that is the great equalizer.
It's the same survivability that we see from the villages of Afghanistan to the small street in Iraq to the impoverished nation in sub-Saharan Africa. No matter, people want to make sure that they can survive, take care of their family, their loved ones are taken care of, and they can produce for themselves, feed their people, clothe their people, that kind of stuff. When it all comes down to it, all this stuff about what we cared about a month or two ago and inquiries and Russia and this and Nancy tearing up papers and all that stuff. We talked, I think, about this a couple weeks ago. None of that matters anymore, right? Nothing. No. What matters is, am I okay? Is my loved ones okay? And God forbid if they're not, if your loved ones are part of that number that we see racking up 16,478 in the U.S., 95,000 plus in the world, then really none of that matters because your whole world's been wrecked.
Yeah, no, this is such a living moment. When I say living moment, I'm trying to draw. I apologize because I'm struggling to communicate the point that I'm trying to make. This is such a moment that's so flexible. It's so fluid. It's so changing. This time last week, we were talking about the importance of respirators. And, like we had governors, with nipple rings going crazy about, I need this. I got to have these respirators. And we're learning now that by putting people on respirators, we're not necessarily helping them in terms of survivability. We might actually be fast tracking their death in some cases, not every case, in some cases. And, the point of what I'm saying is like every couple of days, every 48 hours, every 72 hours, we're identifying a different variable that we were unprepared to face that 72, that 108, that whatever, how many hours prior to that moment. And like what people are really dealing with is what's directly affecting their family. And we are no longer talking in notional terms. This isn't, like you and I both did military exercises where we sat in some briefing and somebody talked to us about the country of Ethiopia or the Plywoodians or whatever, farcical notional force that we were going to face. And we're like, what a great briefing. And knowing that it was a bunch of bullshit, it really had no effect on the real world because you and I had both seen combat. We'd both seen like the enemy face to face. And we're like, this is great, except unrealistic. People are now dealing in the cold hard facts of what's in their bank account. They're dealing with the cold hard facts of trying to get toilet paper at a grocery store. And it's so funny that this simple 2-ply product, of the soft lumber industry that, is across this great continent. It doesn't matter if you're in Maine or if you're in British Columbia. In either one of those countries, in either one of those coasts, the soft lumber industry, the pulp industry is like trying to pump out toilet paper because like the demand on it, even though like we don't have a tangible attachment from the demand on that product to the disease. But going to the store, and you and I have gone to chow halls where we realized like by going to chow during major chow hours, there's a good chance we were going to be targeted. And you had that mental process of focusing through this. Now, stay with me on this because this is a very important point that, we are like, endangering our lives by eating chow. Now, the majority of the American people are starting to process by going to the grocery store, they're endangering their lives.
Yep.
To get the simple 2-ply product, to get the simple bag of potatoes, whatever it might be, I got to wait in line. I got to stand 6 feet apart. I got to stand behind this plexiglass thing. I got to pump this thing. I got to rub my hands. I got to do all these different things because I'm endangering my life to do something that I've never experienced or humanity has not experienced before. And
I got to throw one little caveat on it if I can.
Go
ahead. At least one time I remember walking in a chow where the big voice came off and incoming was happening. But man, it was steak and lobster night. Right, I'm just going to be honest, got to be up front.
You walked tall, didn't you? You walked tall.
Now, the noob that was with me that hadn't been downrange that much dove underneath the Humvee. I kept walking and looked back and I'm like,
whatever, dude, I'm dying for this lobster right now.
It's steak and lobster night, right? Which on this little fob didn't happen that much. And it was like, it's all just everyone keep, that haven't been deployed. The steak, man, it's for being downrange is good. It's the best ribeye I ever had. Might as well be at a, Three Forks or something. But, if you don't know what Three Forks is, you need to go to Texas. But but lobster's lobster. Crab leg, and not snow crab legs. We didn't, the Army didn't, there were no snow crab legs downrange. It was all king. And it's all you can eat. It's everything you can take. And so when incoming can come in, it's just like, that happens all the time. I'm walking. If it's my time, it's my time. Otherwise, it lets me get first in line. Because when you get up there and that line's half emptied out of the people that aren't used to it, then you scooted up, right? The crowd emptied out. So, anyways, I want to be honest. I'm trying to be transparent.
And to add to your caveat, your caveat, the third country national that is slinging that stuff from behind the plexiglass curtain is like, whatever, dude. I'm fully committed to my job.
I got some hungry Joes that want some steak, lobster.
Fully committed. Yes, fully committed.
Anyways, but you're right. People are now starting to, it's a whole new concept of putting themselves, there's a lot of memes out there, right? There's no shortage of memes. Lord knows we trade enough. But there are one or two that I've seen that kind of they're going along the concept, and I'm paraphrasing the whole, you're being told what to do. The government controls your schedule. You can't go out and do what you want. You got to do this. And it's like, oh, now you know what it's like to be in the military. Like, it's all these things, right? You got to what hospital you can go to, and so on and so forth. There's a number of them like that. And yes, it's making light, because that's what we do in the military. We try to find humor where we can. They're all factual. Granted, this is a whole new thing for the American country and American people. And honestly, we never want to see anybody get to this, right? We've talked about this before, Toby, years ago, that, we do what we do. When those have went to combat and experienced it, they're willing to go back rather than have someone who's never had to experience it, see it. And we go over to foreign countries, so they never show up on our shores. And when they have, like 9/11, right, it pains us greatly never to let that happen again. Just like it did, I'm sure, in 1941, never to let an attack on America happen again after attack on Pearl Harbor. We want the American people, and I don't mean this in a rude way, to be blissfully ignorant to the pains and sacrifices of having a war and loss in your own country. So, even though we joke about, well, great, America gets to kind of get a taste of what, those in the military have had to do, it definitely isn't. And I don't think in anyone's interest or desire to have that happen. We'd rather you still pay attention to the Kardashians and The Bachelor and to who's winning American Idol or whatever's going on. Anyways, sorry, kind of digress there.
No, like Jack Nicholson, you want me on the wall, but you don't want to know that I'm there. The whole, A Few Good Men. But before we get too deep into a couple of things, I'm seeing a couple names in, one of the chat rooms, and I just want to throw a shout out because while people are focused on Kardashians or whatever they are focused on, there is a group of men today that are reminiscent and reminded of one of the more successful moments in Iraq that happened in 2004. April 9th, 2004, Task Force Tomahawk was engaged in multiple engagements, but no more than Charlie Company 1, 1st of the 23rd Infantry, the Tomahawks of Task Force Tomahawks, the Comanche Company, to which all of their elements were actively engaged with the enemy, one being pinned down by enemy gunfire and held, requiring a QRF call-out. And on this day, we had a Silver Star awarded. And when I say we, that's because I was a member of Comanche Company, 1st of the 23rd. So Silver Star to an amazing young junior enlisted member, Josh Miller. Bronze Star with Vita Vice for one of the non-commissioned officers, a guy by the name of Quintanilla. He was also like my BNOC buddy, and who'd have thought, like, when we met in BNOC months later, we'd be going to war and getting after it. John Kaiser, him and I met on this day in 2004. He came off a log pack vehicle, and I put him on a QRF force, told him to get in my hip pocket, and we got after it. And most guys that rolled out with me that day got Vita Vices. Big day. Silver Star, some Bronze Stars, just Vita Vices falling out like it was an Oprah show, since we talked about her earlier. And we stacked a lot of skulls that day. One of the most entertaining moments of that day is while we were fighting down a very narrow alleyway. Over the net came Tow on the Way, which came from the vehicles that dropped us off. One of them was an ATGM, which was a Striker variant that had a tow missile launcher that was, if you're familiar with the Bradley fighting vehicle, a twin tube tow missile launcher. And that was the genesis of the main gun striker system, which is the tanker variant, but yet because that had yet to be developed, they had this twin tube tow missile launcher variant, the ATGM, the anti-tank variant going, and this young gentleman, the staff sergeant, I believe he's a staff. He might have only been a sergeant at the time, or maybe he was a staff sergeant. Michael Ewing comes over to the company net, and he was like, "Tow on the way," and you're like, "A tow missile's loose right now," because we're in a very tight urban environment. And then there was a loud whoomph.
That was kind of that was the positive sign that they weren't lying.
Yeah. I found myself about 15 feet away from where I was when I heard that come over the net because the air had moved me
instantly.
And it was nearby. So he was a staff sergeant at the time. He put that tow missile on a Toyota truck, a technical, which it's a strong move.
Yeah, that's some could even call that overkill. That is because I'm sure that technical was not up armored in any way.
It was not. It was a Toyota Hilux.
Yeah,
and it was a lot of great things came out of that day.
Yeah.
Josh Miller, Silver Star, Quintanilla, Bronze Star, Vita Vice.
On this day.
What's that?
On this day.
On this day,
wow.
April 9th, 2004.
Wow.
So hashtag Tomahawk Thursday for all my Task Force Tomahawk brothers. Everyone that went with me. It's also the official, the real non-Facebook friend anniversary of John Kaiser and Toby Nunn.
Here we go. The real one, not the Facebook one. Yeah, good.
Not the Facebook one. The real one.
Thank you, Doug, for your acronym breakdown. I want to see you put TOW in there and go and break that down for us too, for our non-military friends. Yeah, so that's good. That's all these little. I mean, when you spend a couple of years downrange, I mean, you have these dates that kind of stand out, whether they're live days or days which probably could have kind of been that just kind of as you know, Toby, there's downrange in combat's about 90-95% boredom. And 5 or 10% excitement. Some days that 5 or 10% is a little bit more than others. Other days you're just watching a lot of box TV sets, for Haji sets of shows, or doing some serious Xbox or whatever. But we won't get into the rest. That's for a different show. That's for Stu and the Nunn After Hours. But yeah, so I want to kind of get back on. We got a couple things going on in the chat. I want to kind of touch base on here. There's some talks about the journalists and that kind of stuff. Another thing we've seen is the strategy of locking down places. Obviously, New York has took an early run at that and locking down. Washington did too, because of obviously they were getting they were pretty much the first one hardest hit. We saw New Orleans, we saw Louisiana not locked down. They allowed Mardi Gras to happen, and now they are suffering greatly. And just they've had some serious spikes. But then we see other states like the state of Virginia, who I think is now locked down until June 10th. I think Maryland is, I'm sure Rob will correct me or anyone will. I think Maryland is locked down indefinitely. Obviously, states' rights, they get to do what they want, but it seems to be all over the board. Some places are mandatory. You have places like D.C., New York is New York governor has doubled the ticket price or the fine of $1,000 if you group together. D.C. mayor's threatening to arrest people. Chicago mayor's threatening to arrest people. Texas, I don't think you guys have that going on there yet, right? There's not. They're encouraging people. There's nothing mandatory yet, is there? Or is there certain cities?
So we are in a strongly encouraged social distancing, and we have been. Texas is actually, I think, and of course I'm biased, but I think Texas has been one of the best managed states. Period. I think they've done a better job. I don't care what any governor says. The facts, I think, are in the numbers. I think the facts are in the results. We had one of the biggest events that happens in the United States in terms of technology and entertainment with South by Southwest prematurely being canceled, with a lot of other subsequent major events being canceled. And that's because of leadership and people like identifying like, hey, if we do this now, we're going to be in a better position.
Right.
You mentioned Louisiana. You mentioned the city of New Orleans. They did not cancel Mardi Gras. All right. And, you got the mayor of New Orleans is going on and blaming the president of the United States for not telling her directly to, look out for her people, even though the intelligence was there, even though the state had the intelligence, even though she had the intelligence to do it. She lacked the actual like personal intelligence to not shut down. And, as a result, all that travel that came out, all the people dealing with Mardi Gras, that close proximity, they felt the repercussions. I kind of want to touch on that quickly, not just in terms of Mardi Gras and Louisiana, but I'm talking in terms of, overall. There was a piece that came out in the New York Times, and that New York Times was like trying, to refute, I guess is the best terminology. It was trying to refute, how the majority of some of our, or not the majority, but how a vast amount of infection came from Europe, not from China. Right. But the numbers actually support, the president's very premature in January decision to shut down travel from China. And then states like California that had really strong efforts to repatriate, people from China to back into California, back to the United States. They saw an uptick in numbers because of those special travel arrangements. The president's decision to shut down China, what people are calling prematurely, actually changed the dynamic of the spread of this disease. And so, while the New York Times are reporting that we are seeing such a large amount of numbers from Europe, primarily Italy, but that's also because there was a huge envoy of Chinese in Italy at the time. And so, like, this isn't conspiracy theory. This is New York Times, right? You can go and trace back, and they've substantiated and quantified all their information in their attempt to refute and to discredit the president's of the United States decision to shut down travel from China. They're supporting that he did the right thing,
right?
And that we should have done this with several other countries. In fact, almost all countries immediately. So I wanted to bring that up. The next thing I wanted to touch on that you touched on was this: we're going to rat on our neighbors mentality. We are going to tell that the business next door is not essential. Why are they allowing this? Now,
you saw that. I sent you something out of New York, right? Showing that, where they're setting up hotlines too.
Yeah. That's
straight up Gestapo.
So the Chinese have this program, and it's a social justice program, and it's a social credit program where you can gain in social credibility, meaning with the government, and receive favorable action and favorable benefit if you report misbehavior by your neighbors or your community members. We don't want to go there.
Seems ripe for abuse, right?
Yeah, we don't want to go there because it is ripe for abuse. And let's also be honest with each other. That is not freedom.
No,
all right? That is not freedom.
That is a world of snitches. And
yeah,
you know what they say about
they all
snitches.
deserve to live in ditches and get stitches. We don't want that.
Right.
What we want is we want to work together cooperatively, peacefully for the greater good. And as entering into this agreement of society, we behave in such a way that is for the greater good. Ratting people out and trying to do that Like that's not how you do it.
John Kaiser's John Kaiser. It's not just New York.
We can go back to the late 30s, early 40s, and talk about how that worked out for the Jewish community in several different nations. That's not what we want to do.
Yeah, Kaiser's saying it's not just New York. He's saying the Washington governor has set up a tattletale hotline in the state of Washington.
100%.
Yeah. It's I mean, I can't imagine people. I mean, there's we talked about memes earlier. These other jokes, right? And even Tim Kennedy put up something. What I think Tim put it up a few days ago. He tweeted, which he's got a great Twitter following. You know, how do you like your first 30 days of communism, socialism, right? Your trial period, right? Something to that effect. And we've seen that a few places.
Tim also put up something immediately, not immediately, but very quickly after that, following that. So if you get on, at Tim Kennedy MMA on Twitter or Instagram, you can find this. But he talked about how he would go to war with Google because one of the things that Google is offering the government right now, or offering governments to include state entities, is the ability to track people's cell phones. And, while we all know that this technology exists, this is something that shouldn't be profited from, and it shouldn't be utilized, and it shouldn't be exploited. But they were like, well, we could just look at everyone's cell phone and be like, okay, so Toby Nunn is located right now in his office, which I am, which is not my home. And as a result, I'm therefore violating this stay-at-home order. Because I guess I'm technically non-essential. Now, I mean, of course I could take this to court because I own a media company, and, you and I are discussing, on this podcast, things that are of a nature of, journalism. Therefore, I'm technically, for this moment in time, essential, and
I think you're
violating
very essential.
any law.
I think you're very essential to me. Just saying.
Well, no, I'm 100%. But the fact that by looking at my cell phone and saying that, oh, well, he's here and he should be there, we should send authorities to deal with that. Like, that is a level of Big Brother that is such a slippery slope that we don't want to go down.
I don't even know if it's that. I would say, do you want a revolution? Because that's how you get a revolution. Like,
right.
That's
you open this door now, you can never close it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's not conspiracy theory. That's not militia, tough guy talk. That's just, you open this door on any issue, it is tough to close it. This is the reason why we have three branches of government. This is why the United States is the greatest nation in the world, is because we have three branches. They're separate: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And so, like,
I want to hit on that real quick. Just real quick, because you brought that up. A month ago, roughly 3 weeks ago, maybe, the Department of Justice went and tried to get the ability and have certain rights waived and allow them to keep people in jail, arrest and keep people with no set term during this crisis. And Congress shot that down, right? Remember, I think it was a committee shot. They went, now what the Department of Justice, just everyone make real clear, just because he's the president doesn't mean he's making every single decision made by every single, it never was that way under Bush. It wasn't that way under Clinton, under Obama, or any president. They don't decide every flipping thing, even though the media would love to think that any bad thing that happens, that Trump personally made the decision. It's not that way. So whether he did this or not, I don't know. But regardless, the Department of Justice tried to overstep its bounds. Maybe its intent was good. Maybe it didn't think about the outcome or the ramifications. But that checks and balances kicked in, right? And Congress stepped in and said, no, not no, but hell no. Plus for the fact that the courts can step in. People can bring suits and that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to highlight that we've already seen the checks and balances that their founding fathers put in place already come into effect, and make sure that one side doesn't start to violate constitutional right and fundamental laws that were put in place to found this country. So, and I think that example was a good one. So I didn't want to jump in there and just kind of say that. But let's talk about privacy real quick. There are countries that take that do not take our level of privacy. There's some that take that make our privacy laws look like nothing. In Europe, there's some that they really take privacy to the next level in some cases. And there's other countries like Australia, which if people in America ever go to Australia and you get a chance to vacation, or it's a beautiful country, you'll see that privacy is pretty much out the window there. You can't pretty much walk down the street and there's not a camera seeing you all the time, 24/7, number one. Number two, you can't even go into a club without scanning your license or ID. And every club has a kiosk computer, and they're all interconnected on a database. So if you get in a bar fight at a bar down the street, by the time you show up in the next one, they already know about it. If you've had a problem in that club, they know about it. They scan your card every time. They know everything about you. Every bar, every restaurant you walk into, nightclub, they're tracking you all the time. People in this country would never, ever put. I mean,
don't skip that tab.
Yeah. We show an ID, you get a stamp on your hand or a little thing on your wrist. So you're over 21. That's one thing. That's totally different than scanning your ID and running you against a BOLO list to see if they want to let you. And it goes like a green, amber, red. Like an amber, like they'll talk to you. Hey, you started crap before 6 months ago. Don't do it again. Right? Red's like you're not allowed in here. But just so people know, privacy is definitely what you just highlighted. What people have talked about doing, or what we talk about tattletale lines and that kind of stuff, or tracking your phone to see if you're allowed to leave your. That's at that level times 1,000.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of issues coming to light, and we're really getting a thermometer on what people's comfort level with some of these things are. You had the governor nipple rings of New York. I'm just because he's your people. I just gotta.
Hey. That's like me saying Beto's your people. Let's
let's
back off that.
Let's
take that down about 28% there, Squirrely Dan.
He is from Texas,
but I don't consider him your people.
Yeah, he doesn't represent us legally. So just throwing that back at you.
He did at one point. He did at one time.
Not me. He represented a small district. Yeah, but oh man, you got me on thinking about Beto.
I threw that in there and just took.
Damn it! Like he can derail anything.
Yep, he sure can. Especially if he gets up on a table. Let's take a different path real quick. Let's talk about the WHO. I want to get your impression, being a man of international flavor as you are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And the World Health Organization. There's a lot of talk about going back, withdrawing funding. We saw the president and the head of WHO get into a little Twitter, spat or whatever in the last 24 hours. There's talks from Lindsey Graham and others of withholding funds. There's talks of investigations. I'd like to get your take on that. Is it not the right time to be doing that? Should we give them room to do what they should be doing? Is there some accountability, or does it get written off as a mistake? What's your ideas on that?
Without a doubt, unequivocally deny all funding. They are not serving the needs of the globe. They are not serving the needs of the world in terms of humanity. They obviously have been bought and sold to a government. Therefore, they do not serve the needs of the American people. They should not get funding from the American people. If the American people happen to be the largest contributor to that organization, well, it sucks to be them. I feel the same way about the World Health Organization as I feel about NATO. Yep. If you want to reap the benefits of NATO and you don't want to contribute financially, eat a bag.
Of potato chips, of course.
Yeah, or not Pringles because they come in a tube.
Yes.
But
do you feel the WHO director, the comment he made was a threat? Right, Rob put it up there. Right, if you want to be exploited, if you want to have more body bags, then do it. Meaning politicizing the virus and that kind of stuff. I took it on face value as a threat, even though I say that with the caveat of I don't see how us cutting off funding is going to help keep body bag counts down, because I don't see them developing viruses and vaccines and antibodies. I see that coming from within individual organizations and medical centers and things like that.
They are in no way contributing to the decline. They're in no way contributing to the clear. to the cure. The only thing that they've contributed to is the misinformation and the protection of the reputation of the Chinese government. China is not our friend. They're not our ally. We cannot be party, and we cannot be members to organizations that do not represent us. Like I feel the same way about the World Health Organization as I feel about the Paris Accord. The Paris Accord did not represent the United States of America. It didn't represent the money that was being demanded and the guilt that was being established wrongfully against the United States of America and the population. So why were the population of the United States being held accountable for the majority of the world's pollution when we weren't? The World Health Organization is a bogus organization now. We thought that they were, a representation of the globe, a representation of humanity, and they showed that they were a entity that could be bought and sold by a government.
I mean, when you consider war, when you consider world something like the World Court and that kind of, when you think of it, you think they are the highest bar. Like
no,
they are
not.
Right.
They clearly are not.
Right. And this showed it.
Yeah. So therefore, I wouldn't give them a penny. I would put sanctions on them. I would feel free, just like I would a terrorist, to leave them open for adjudication in whatever applicable court per country is. If you say that Americans can be held in a international court for crimes against whatever, then therefore old dude that is the head of World Health Organization should be held accountable in court.
I don't know if Rob knows. I don't know if you know Toby or Rob or anyone. Like, what have they done for us? I don't know any of the pluses, any of the positive things that have come out of the WHO for our country. I'll just say in the last 10 years, what have they done that our country couldn't have done? What have they invented or been innovative with? What have they contributed to that we wouldn't have known would have done or what? I mean, I would think if anything, maybe they help third world countries. Maybe that's maybe they're putting, but our CDC goes all over the globe,
right? But
and does stuff.
So great, they help some third world country. Awesome. Who paid for that?
Right. Oh yeah.
So let's get back to rational, simple thought. If the United States is the financial contributor to this organization or to whatever the accord or whatever it might be, if we are the financial contributor to it, NATO, whatever it is, then we should be represented appropriately in that.
Or be the number one benefactor, or the benefactor when we need to pull that trigger, right? And be
now, some could say, well, maybe China paid more, therefore that's why they got what they got. And then what I'm saying is hypocritical. If you are saying that you represent the world and you're demanding a financial share based on our population base and based on our impact on the global community, then we should reap the benefit of getting that representation. And when I say reap the benefit, I mean honesty.
Well, we saw it when
the
President
World Health Organization has done some great things, and I'm going to defend the World Health Organization in terms of Ebola. I'm going to defend them in terms of the AIDS epidemic back in the 80s. I'm going to defend them in certain scenarios when it came to other issues in second and third world countries coming out of the Eastern Bloc countries. So they have done some good things. But the reality is in this scenario, which is the greatest health scenario that we've faced, and while you might not agree with it in terms of numbers, you should definitely agree with it in terms of attention. You should definitely agree with it in terms of how it's affecting infrastructure of so many nations.
An economy, economies,
being part of that, right? Infrastructure, all the things I'm talking about.
Do you think there's been something bigger?
No.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't think. I think
no. I cannot think of something that's and they're the organization that we entrust with our funds for this moment. And we were let down. And when I say we were let down, humanity was shortchanged the opportunity to do a better job at saving lives. If I was Italy, I would never give them another form of financial support ever.
Yep.
If I was Italy, I would be seeking the highest form of compensation from this body. Like, give me back every penny that I've ever given you, and you'll never see another dollar. They have proven themselves to not be worthy of the support of the global community.
Right. And I would not expect them to service or show favor to any one country, regardless of how much they contribute, including the U.S., even though we contribute the most, right? Yep. Everyone should contribute, just like when President Trump came in, right? He went to NATO. It was NATO or UN. He went to the UN and said, hey, start giving up and start paying your part. And we saw that happen, right? But everyone just let us pay the most. Right? Everybody's cool with that. Hey, it's no different than, if your neighbor wants to go out and your neighbor wants to do this and shovel your part of the sidewalk every week and is out there first thing in the morning or mow your grass for you, and okay, that's, so I don't blame them for none of them for wanting to step up and say, hey, you're doing too much. They were like, hey, U.S. wants to pay the most, let them go. President Trump came in and said, no, change that. I was not up on the WHO, was not really tracking, the stats on it, what we're given. Now I know a lot more after this. I would say we should definitely go with the same approach. Hey, every country, I don't know what the percentage is. Maybe it's a percentage of your GDP or something like that. I would assume that would be it. Everyone pays this amount. This is all we're paying. That's great. We were paying 17%. We're paying 2%. That's what everyone should pay. We're done. Right? So everyone has an equal stake in the game. Nobody should be paying more and expecting more. Nobody should be paying more or less and get it because the leader comes from their country originally. It has to be, you have to be objective and say everyone is represented evenly, regardless if you're a country with a $1 million GDP or a $5 trillion GDP, right? It doesn't matter. You pay your part.
So one of the things that's definitely going to be great or good that comes out of our current situation is this. A few years ago, there was a lot of people that talked about the United States leaving the Paris Accord. Well, the majority of people that were complaining, primarily the mainstream media, about the United States leaving the Paris Accord is because they were completely and utterly uninformed on what the Paris Accord actually was and what it actually meant.
Right.
And, they were like, well, President Obama put us in it and Trump took us out. Therefore, one was good and one was bad. This must be a bad thing. But they had no idea what we were actually committed to or why we were committed to it. And in essence, without getting into facts and figures, the Paris Accord basically was the global agreement that the United States, while not responsible for the majority, in fact, we had one of the smallest percentiles of pollution, we were financially responsible for all of it. And we were going to take care of all of it for however long. And, the same with NATO. It's like, while we are, a big part of NATO, we were one of the founding members. There was other members of NATO. The United States was not, when NATO was formed, correct me if I'm wrong. We were not like the country that was engaged in warfare the most. The United Kingdom was. And, right. There was this alliance that was built, within, the Commonwealth that supported the United Kingdom to help with manufacturing and, food and supplies, personnel in terms of warfare with the Canadian Army, the New Zealand, the Australian. When you look at the Commonwealth, the Indians, the Gurkhas, primarily. When you look at all this stuff, there is an unfairness to it. There's a misrepresentation of actual numbers. Rob's putting up the WHO contributors with the United States being at 57.9. We'll just round it up to 58 million.
Yeah.
China with not even 30, right? So like twice the population of us, and we're paying twice the cost, where we should be half of that. And let's not forget where this disease came from.
Yeah, actually 4 times the population, right? China's 1.2 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're 361 million.
Yeah.
Or something like that. So
like
Italy is 7.9. I bet Italy could take that.
Misrepresentation of like responsibility. It's a gross misrepresentation of financial responsibility. They politicize this by allowing a country to, maneuver and finagle. It is basically made itself irrelevant. Dr. Fauci is more important than the guy that's run the WHO. Like, let's just be honest.
Yeah.
Thank God Dr. Fauci is American.
Yep. Or Dr. Dr. Birx.
Canada's got to be grateful. Italy's got to be grateful. The New Zealanders, the Australians, the Mexicans, all need to be grateful that Dr. Fauci is on our team. Yep. Because that CDC, that task force that we have is actually representing the human people, where the WHO is not representing the human race. So, but I could go on.
No, and I want to highlight Dr. Birx. She's been a mainstay in the nightly briefings and all that stuff. I just want to give a big shout out. Former retired colonel, U.S. Army colonel. She is known now for her scarves. I mean, she is getting quite a following on the different.
She's badass.
On her different scarves she wears every day. That's becoming I'm surprised there's not a Twitter account yet for her scarves, but she retired U.S. Army colonel in the medical corps before she's on doing this. I just want to give her a big shout out because she continues to be giving back to this country. What I understand was also in the leading fight against the AIDS epidemic when it came out. She was one of the leading people and very involved in that. So I think that's high speed and awesome for her and Dr. Fauci and all the rest of them for doing what they're doing. And we said it last week and we say it again for all of our medical personnel, first responders, and all the folks that are still bricks. Thank you. Sorry there, Matt Burden just corrected me on my share. Yeah, she was at, I guess, Walter Reed. I said Burks, but yes, bricks. All those folks that are out there that aren't able to go home to their families or don't want to put them at risk, that are seeing some horrible things. I saw a report today that I have not validated it, so I don't know how true this is, but I saw a report but it's not surprising that there's so many dying. I mean, I think last night was 779 in New York City alone, that they're using the National Guard, the New York National Guard, to go around and pick up the bodies. Which is absolutely horrific, an absolutely terrible thing to think, and not horrific because the National Guard's doing it. Thank goodness that we have them to do that, but just that it has gotten to that point. Needed. Yes, that's gotten to that point that the ambulances and the different the hearses and stuff, they're having to load them up, and again, we're asking our young 20, 30 something year old citizen soldiers who are probably gonna come out of some of this having, just like they're going to combat, they're going to come out of this aged, having seen and experienced probably some things they thought they never would, especially if they'd never been to combat already. But there could be a bigger effect because they're seeing it in their own home country and in the largest city in the world, or it doesn't matter, any city or any major city. So, we have, it was Burks. Thank you, Matt, for correcting yourself and allowing me to correct yourself. But
as you were,
Matt Burden, you can knock out 20 and tell me how that was after that. Just to have our National Guard soldiers, our citizen soldiers, the college students, the sales clerk, the UPS driver, the cop, no matter what they are, out there having to do this. So big kudos and shout out to them. Anyone that's responding to this, anyone that's stepping up, and putting themselves at harm's way, leaving their families voluntarily or not, to go do this is an admirable thing. And I hope our country, for a long, I would say forever, but I know I'm just going to be realistic. It won't be that because we have such a short time memory span, but I hope for a really long time they don't forget this. Not only that what our medical people are doing, but all of our first responders, our military, so on and so forth, is what they're stepping up to do. So a lot of folks here helping out. And a lot of folks are showing appreciation. I don't know what you're seeing in Texas, Toby, but I follow our stuff going on up here in Western New York, and there's businesses that are, people are going to buy things from, a tons of Dairy Queen shakes or a whole bunch of Chick-fil-A sandwiches or whatever, and they're taking and dropping it off at the front steps of fire halls and police departments and things like that, and not asking for anything. Because I see what they put up. They're like, whoever dropped this off, thank you so much. That kind of stuff. To me, that makes me feel so good.
No, maybe 20 minutes before the show, I was party to a conversation with the Mesquite Creek outfitter, Brad and Cody, working out with a local businessman how to get some really impressive Wagyu meat sent to like all the firehouses in our area. Taking care of those guys, taking care of like the police, taking care of like the medical staff here. There's a huge retirement community, which is a huge at-risk community here, where we're located at in Central Texas, and seeing like everyone doing their part, finding ways to support businesses that you normally wouldn't support. Or that you normally would support, but you're finding ways to support them more in these times. It's awesome, and my one of my best buddies, Kathleen saying is like America is really showing up. They are really demonstrating that this is who we are, and on one hand I'm like really bummed out, but I was telling my youngest the other day, it's like, you are old enough to remember this moment. And while you're thinking about it in terms of, your school being canceled and not seeing your friends and stuff like that, I want you to think about like what this really means in the big picture, and how like you were able to witness America answering its call to itself, and how wonderful it is to like be part of this, because this isn't happening anywhere else in the world. Right. This situation is, but this response is not.
Right, absolutely.
And we are part of the winning team. We are part of the team that's doing everything to flatten the curve. We're, we're the country that is sending respirators to other countries while figuring out how to make sure that we have enough respirators for ourselves. I guarantee any other, I don't see Iran sending respirators to us to help us. Right. I don't see South Korea sending us respirators to help us. They're not.
You know what I saw?
Yeah, we're doing that.
Just
keep that in mind. But I know we got to wrap. So
yeah, no, I saw Italy send 500,000 tests to us, right? And
awesome.
Right. And there's definitely things, and a big shout out to the states. There's states helping each other, right? Oregon sent New York 140 respirators without them asking for it, without anything, right? There's other states that I know they're watching the trends and the spikes, and they're like, hey, we got extra, we can throw them here, that, whatever. They'll get it back to us when they're done. I mean, so it's not even, community within a community. It's states helping states without being asked, without being begged, which is awesome. We expect the federal government to do some of that, obviously, the federal government, but for states to step up and not try to hoard it themselves or whatever, speaks volumes to that too. So yeah. Also, Matt Bird, you can go ahead and recover. I see you were knocking him out. Yeah, he was.
So Matt, we need to get you on, bud.
Yes.
We talked about this actually in a text message earlier today. You and I, Troy, we got to get Matty on the show.
Yep, that we do
soon.
Yeah. So, we've been going a little bit over an hour, Toby. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap this up?
I think that's it. I'm good.
Okay. Want to make sure everyone tunes in next Thursday. Obviously, this was a busy week. We had the show last Tuesday with Tim Kennedy, Monday night with Dr. Mike Simpson. Tonight, just Toby and I covering a lot of topics. So it's been pretty busy. But next Thursday, we'll be back 8:00. We got Chris Capaluto from Task and Purpose will be our guest. Already booked.
Sweet.
We have guests for the next couple of weeks booked out. So we'll be announcing them each week, obviously, if we have somebody. So we have Chris on next week. Be sure to tune in here on Stu and the Nunn. You can follow us on all of our outlets. You can find it at stewandthenunn.com. About 4 different video outlets, a whole bunch of audio outlets. You can put us in your iTunes, put us on your podcast, check us out later. For all those that tuned in tonight, we were a little over 300, about 325, 326 is what I saw. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you everyone for not only tuning in, but taking some time to welcome us into your homes, in your ears and on your screens. We really, really do appreciate it. That's why we do this. And it means a lot the more we see. Hopefully we're putting out stuff and talking about things that matter to you, or maybe giving you a break from stuff that you just want to get and get a break from. So with that, Toby, I don't think we have anything else. You ready to split? So, all right, everybody, you guys have a good night, and we will see you all next week. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, BlueHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.